This is Weather or Not.
And welcome into this Wednesday edition of Weather or Not. I was thinking on the way in this morning, this is the third time this winter that we've talked about winter weather here in our own backyard.
And maybe whether or not is the good omen.
Right.
If you're a fan of winter weather.
A lot more weather, a lot less not so far this winter.
Right. For sure. First alert weather day obviously declared for our region. Inland areas could see some freezing rain, but this system already having an impact for places in the south.
Yeah, certainly is. Let's take you on a little bit of a tour across the deep south here with that first alert. And yeah, not only us here in the Carolinas, but this is the third time so far this winter that places like Nashville, Tennessee are dealing with snow covering roads there across the I-40 corridor heading through Nashville. They're picking up anywhere from 2 to as much as 5 inches of snow from the system that's working its way through. Speaking of I-40, let's take you westbound out of Nashville and into Memphis.
Yeah, plenty of heavy snow coming down, and this snow once again adding up. That 2 to 4 inch range was the big story across portions of Tennessee, 1 to 3 inches north into Kentucky. But you'll notice for Memphis, yeah, snow falling overnight. That looked made for a tough morning commute there, and of course that continued as well in the neighboring communities just to the northeast. In Clarksville, they're picking up on snow as well.
Yeah, let's take you into Clarksville, Tennessee. Police say dozens of crashes, hundreds of calls overnight for help thanks to all of the snow there. Look at it, snowing and blowing there in Clarksville, Tennessee for the third time this year. They're also picking up 2 to 4 inches of snow, although starting to wind down there as we work our way through this morning. We'll wrap this up deep in the south. Let's take you to Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, just enough for some flakes. They had rain just to the south of them, but Huntsville picking up on some of that light snow. That snow came down, and a lot of it was melted out by some of the rain that also moved in as well. So keep in mind a very dynamic system working out to our west. And what does that mean for us? Well, now that leads us to our threat, which comes in later this evening in that special early edition here of Weather or Not. Winter weather advisory now extended to include all of Horry County and interior portions of Georgetown County for this evening.
Yeah, slight change in that advisory from what we saw yesterday, which was mainly interior Horry County. Nothing to be overly alarmed with, though. This is primarily for what happens after the rain starts to move out. Heading into tomorrow morning, we may get temperatures dropping down around 29 to 30, and that could lead to some slick spots that may develop just in time for that morning commute. Interior Horry County into the PD, still looking at that glaze of freezing rain that develops. And then notice there, top corner of your screen, that winter storm warning there in that pink. That's where they're probably going to be dealing with a nasty ice storm. Places like Jacksonville, North Carolina, Kenansville, up towards Goldsboro, Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, up into Greenville, North Carolina. They're going to be dealing with a heftier coating of ice.
Yeah, so let's start you. We'll do it right here in the middle of the day, and notice, of course, some showers will begin to work in. Temperature-wise, will begin to fall as we head into the afternoon. This has been the best model, at least on how it's handled this morning. And notice as early as 2, 3 o'clock this afternoon, starting to get in on some of that wintry mix and freezing rain up into portions along the North Carolina border.
Yeah, could be a little sleet mixed in there. Notice here closer to the beaches, even here, we'll drop down into the upper 30s this afternoon. We've already seen our high temperature for the day. It's a slow and steady downhill drop as we head into this afternoon. Taking you later into the afternoon, this is when things start to get a little more critical. Notice places like Laurinburg, Lumberton, Dillon sitting right at that 32-degree mark. That's when we start to get concerned about a little bit of that freezing rain that begins to settle in there. Closer to the beaches, likely on the damp side through that evening commute with those temperatures into the mid-30s, so no freezing rain concerns. But a lot of the moisture kind of tries to break up a bit a little bit later this evening, but those temperatures are still going to be really critical.
Yeah, going to be really critical. You'll notice 34 degrees there in Myrtle Beach, a cold rain. But as we go a little bit further into the evening, the big question I have as we go into this system is dry air is going to come in and try to ruin this as we head into 8, 9 o'clock. You'll notice that on some of the newest data coming in. Yeah, it could even maybe an area of freezing drizzle for inland areas. But I think once the moisture pulls out of here, 10, maybe even 11 p.m., we're done with this, but could still see some freezing areas tonight.
Yeah, especially because as those temperatures continue to drop, we'll take it through the rest of the night. And again, there could be a little freezing drizzle, but notice here by 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, everybody is below freezing, even some upper 20s showing up. And once you start getting to that 29, 30 degree range, that's when you can start to get some slick spots, especially on bridges and overpasses. And don't forget your front step, your back deck. Even if you don't see a big glaze of ice in the trees, there could be a couple of those slick spots around heading into tomorrow morning.
Yeah, certainly some elevated surfaces. So let's take you zone by zone, shall we? We'll go up into the area we think that we'll see the worst of the ice for our region. That's going to be up there in Robinson and Scotland County. I've kind of considered this all morning and said it, Jamie. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. I think in those spots you could pick up on 1/10 of an inch. Worst case, you pick up on close to 2/10 of an inch as you go up into Red Springs and the northern extent there of Scotland and Robinson County.
Yeah, basically take Lumberton and Laurinburg north. That's where we're likely to see most of the ice accumulation. But even there, likely only around 2/10 of an inch. That's kind of that critical part that we talk about when it comes to ice. That 1/4 inch threshold is when you start breaking tree limbs and start getting the resulting isolated power outages. I don't think we get there, but as we were saying, you get up towards Fayetteville, you get up towards Goldsboro, you get up towards Jacksonville, North Carolina, 1/4 to maybe 1/3 of an inch of ice, bona fide ice storm in those areas, but avoiding that, at least that's how it looks at this point, there for Scotland and Robinson County.
Yeah, we'll take you into our second area. That's going to be in the PD, and just looking at some of how the data is coming in with dry air to the west, I would say worst case scenario in Hartsville and Lamar, you're picking up on a light glaze. The further east you go, you'll be dealing with a little bit more cooler temperatures and some of that moisture. Marion, Florence, the PD, Mullins, you might be able to pick up closer to a glaze or a little bit more than that. Even then, main roads should be okay. It's going to be slick spots once again on bridges and overpasses. I don't think we'll see any power outages as we go into this area.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that worst case scenario, if we do get 1/10 of an inch of ice, certainly not enough for any power outages, which is certainly some good news there. Finally, we'll bring you down into the heart of the Grand Strand. As far as any actual freezing rain that may fall, or freezing drizzle, that comes later this evening after about 9 or 10 o'clock, and that would be primarily for interior Horry County. But as you head down into inland Georgetown County and even the Grand Strand, what we're going to have to watch for is maybe the temperature dropping down to around 30 just before sunrise tomorrow morning, and that means any wet spots could freeze up a bit, giving us some slick spots, especially on those bridges and overpasses. But here too, no major issues, and certainly not concerned about any power outages.
I'm tired of talking about ice.
I hate talking about ice.
Let's get to something that I think has piqued my interest a little bit more.
Yeah, kind of started to see this sort of trickling in on some of the models yesterday. The trend has continued overnight into this morning with some of the latest data coming in. On the backside of this system, most of the moisture is gone, but cold air comes rushing in. There's a little bit of moisture left over. There's a little bit of energy upstairs in the atmosphere, and that's the perfect setup for a little bit of snow.
And this is not going to be anything accumulating in our area, but a little bit of snowflakes could be happening. Let's go ahead and show you what this looks like. And you'll notice by the time we wake up, first it's going to be cloudy, gross, cool, blustery.
Yeah.
But keep an eye on radar tomorrow mid-morning all the way through the afternoon.
Yeah, mid-morning into the afternoon. Notice it's not widespread. You see a little couple patches of blue there. Yeah, that's a brief snow flurry or a snow shower that could blow through here as we head from, as Andrew mentioned, the late morning, midday into the afternoon. But notice temperature safely above freezing, even if we do get a flurry or two. So not expecting any kind of accumulation, but for the snow lovers out there, maybe one last gasp at seeing a flake or two as we head into Thursday. And that'll probably be it for the winter. Barring anything crazy, I think we're hopefully done.
I think at this point, we're going to have systems that are going to be off to our northwest. We're going to be in a cold rain. You also look here as we go into Thursday night, cold temperatures thanks to the clear skies, very blustery. Let's show you what that's like when it comes to our temperature trend, because we will dip for your Thursday. And when you look at even morning temperatures, yeah, it is going to be cold.
Yeah.
Miserable cold.
Yeah, look at that. Thursday night into Friday morning, all the way down to the low 20s. On my trip back from Canada, I was driving home from the airport and just kind of looking around. I was like, oh, there's some dandelions, a couple of spring weeds starting to come up, some green grass showing up. It ain't lasting long.
No, not at all. In fact, most of that will be killed with that one night, not to mention 2 nights in the lower 20s, maybe even some isolated teens. And then, believe it or not, 60s start to come back in for next week and some 70s inland. Here we go again, kind of riding up that chain of lift as we head into next week. No significant weather makers on the horizon for next week at this time.
Yeah, it looks like kind of a tranquil spell heading into next week and certainly turning much milder with those temperatures potentially flirting with that 70-degree mark. So bottom line here, again, nothing like what we saw back in January, sort of a minor nuisance event, as I call it. We're not talking about a major ice storm, which is good news. But as we've also said, anytime we're talking about any amount of freezing rain, even if it is just a glaze, it can kind of sneak up on you. So for that reason, make sure to download the WNBF First Alert weather app. We'll be sending out updates specifically with that temperature. We'll be watching that temperature closely late this afternoon inland, overnight tonight across the Grand Strand. And do we time up those freezing temperatures just right with some of that lingering moisture?
Yeah, plenty of team coverage coming your way. We'll be here throughout the evening if something were to develop or any trouble spots out there on the roads. Until then, much quieter Weather or Not coming your way tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you back here tomorrow for the latest episode of Weather or Not.